Well, hello, and welcome to this week's episode that I want to start with a question. Does your kind and compassionate heart, your generosity, ever leave you feeling like a sucker? My name is Terri Cole. I'm a licensed psychotherapist, a relationship expert, and the founder of Boundary Bootcamp and the upcoming Real Love Revolution. So, let's talk about that. What am I talking about? I'm talking about feeling manipulated in your life. Do you feel like you overgive? Do you feel like you overdo in your relationships? Are you drawn to people who have these very high expectations of what it is that you should be doing for them? If you said yes, let's talk about why that may be and how can you change it. So the first thing that you need is your own awareness. People who grew up in homes where they didn't feel super valued, or where they were trying to get positive feedback from a parent, perhaps a distant mother or an emotionally unavailable father, can be very vulnerable to manipulators. So that's also our empaths, right? Our kind people. When you're an empath, you're very dialed in to other people's feelings, but also what they want. So your own background, I want you to be aware of, because this really does impact the types of people that you attract. And it's like, do you become a mark for someone who's a manipulator? Because people who manipulate, many of them are really, really good at it. So another thing to talk about is confusing being needed, right? Do you consider yourself a helper? Do you like being needed? Do you like helping people? There's a difference, though, between being truly needed, helping a child, helping an older parent, and getting involved with people who use you, which is not the same thing. And you know that feeling in the end of some kind of a relationship where you just feel like the person was an opportunist and really just saw your weakness, like saw your kindness and your generosity as a weakness, because that's exactly what manipulators do. They have this ability to find that weakest spot and go in there and make you feel guilty about things. So let's talk about how to identify people who can become potential manipulators in your life. The first thing is that when you meet someone or you're in a relationship with someone and they're being very, very flattering, like too flattering, a lot of times, we would say commonly that they're buttering you up for something, but that's actually true. So be mindful. If someone is laying on the compliments, and then if you see a pattern that they're very, very flattering, and then they ask you to do something or ask you for something. So that's one thing to look for. Another sign of someone being a manipulator is them having very different faces. So they could go from being very sweet and kind to one person to being very cruel and aggressive to someone else. Because what a manipulator is doing is they're always assessing, consciously and unconsciously, how they need to behave to get what they want. So with some people, they'll behave aggressively because that will get them what they want. With some people, they behave very sweet. With some people, they'll be very flattering. But with people who are not prone to be manipulators, they're pretty consistent. You know who they are. Healthy people have an ability to be the same. There isn't all of this changing. So be mindful of that if you see that in a potential relationship. You're observing them. Another thing to look out for is to avoid self-blame. Because keep in mind, as I was just saying, people who are very manipulative have this ability to know how to, like, what buttons to push to get you to do what they want you to do. And they're all kind of Malcolm X about it, right? Any means necessary. So they may go from being aggressive to being loving to being kind or whatever it is. But I want you to be aware of what relationships this may be happening in for you. And rather than beating yourself up, which might be like a default position for you, to be like, well, I'm stupid, I fell for it again, or I shouldn't have let them in my life, or whatever it may be, that doesn't help you. So instead of making it personal, as you're really observing and not making it personal, you can look at their behavior to really ascertain, to really decide and get the information that you need about who this person really is. Because I promise you, if someone is manipulating you or trying to, they're doing this to many other people as well in their life. For some people, this is the only way they know how to get their needs met. Now, it isn't healthy, it isn't high functioning, but it is what it is, and their reasons for being the way they are is really not your problem, right? That's not your side of the street. But your side of the street is deciding who gets to be in the front row of your life, right? You don't want someone else deciding, well, they want to be in your life, so therefore you let them be in your life. I really want you to start thinking about, from your point of view, what do you want in your life? Who do you want in your life? What do these relationships that are in your life really do for you? All right, so other things that you can do if you're in a relationship with someone who's a manipulator. And when I say manipulator, a lot of times we're talking about, what does manipulation mean? It means someone is trying to get you to do something that will benefit them, even if it doesn't benefit you, right? They want you to do what they want you to do, regardless of what the cost is for you. Sometimes, as I was just saying, people who are manipulators, they really may be unaware that that's what they're doing. So there's this technique where you mirror their unreasonable request or their selfishness back to them. So if the person, for example, I had a client who had a friend who was a real manipulator, and she would ask my client to do the most selfish things. Like, she was selfish. So she would say, well, can you please just come get me after you do whatever it is? Meaning it would create 2 more hours in the car for my client so that her friend could sleep late. I was like, how is that even, that's not even a friend who would want you to do that, right? That's just someone who's thinking about themselves anyway. So in that situation, if we were going to mirror back, I had her say to the person, wait, so what you're asking me to do is to wake up 4 hours earlier and spend an additional 2 hours in the car so you can get your beauty rest? Does that sound fair? If the tables were turned, would you do that? Of course, the answer is no. But you have to have a firmness to be able to push back. And repeating back their unreasonable request or their selfish request is a very effective way. But you have to be able to say, does that sound fair? That does not seem fair to me, right? Are you asking me or are you telling me? Is this actually a negotiation, or are you basically, you're dictating? Because a lot of times with manipulators, they will dictate as if it's the law of how it's going to be. So part of it is asking these questions that are mirroring what they're actually doing, hoping that that will end up sort of waking them up a little bit to what it is that they're doing. And the next thing is that you have to resist, right? You have to resist being manipulated, right? You have to resist. A lot of times there's this pressure that someone who's a manipulator, they can really like whip you up and like suck you into their reality and what they want. Do you know what I mean? Have you ever had this experience where someone calls you and they're having an emergency, and then suddenly it feels like it's your emergency, whatever the situation is? They didn't plan, so they're like, well, if I don't get this done by tomorrow, I'm going to lose my health insurance, or I'm going to whatever their emergency is. But you have to remember, that's not your emergency. And someone's expectation may be that I need an answer right now. Many people who are manipulative, they know that if they pressure you for an answer, that you'll probably give them the answer that they want so that you can get the conversation to end. So I had a client who had a very manipulative boyfriend who was always like, but I need to know right now. And so we decided that she was instituting a 24-hour decision-making policy. So just say that. You don't owe anyone an instant answer unless it is an actual emergency, right? And even then. So if someone says, well, I need to know right now, you can say, well, actually, I've instituted a 24-hour policy where I'm not making any decisions until I can sleep on it for, 24 hours. I'm going to have one night's sleep, and then I'll get back to you tomorrow on it. So what ends up happening is a manipulator knows that their power is in dictating the reality, your shared reality. They're dictating how it is. By you saying, you have to be able to push back and say, well, you can want an answer right now, and I can still not give you one. And realize that the only way to keep a manipulator in your life, if they have other good qualities, is for you to push back and negotiate for your own needs. And the last suggestion on this little how to identify and handle a manipulator, it's going to be like a little cheat sheet so you can download it, there's little steps, is no is not a 4-letter word. You just have to be able to say it. If it's hard for you to say no, I understand. I really do. I have a whole course on boundaries. Like, I really do get it. But you just have to do it. Just bite the bullet. Just say no. If they say why, say because I don't want to. Because you know what? That's a good enough reason to not do anything. I mean, unless you have children and stuff. I'm not talking about minor kids. I mean, in life in general, in relationships with two consenting adults, friends, lovers, family members, siblings, whomever. The fact that you don't want to do something actually matters. And the only way it's going to matter to other people is if it matters to you. So, I would love to hear what you think about this episode. If you like it, please share it on social media. I hope you have an amazing week not being manipulated. And as always, take care of you.